We should be almost there.
Awesome. Looks like we're going.
Yeah, awesome. Well, here we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Glad to see everyone once again here on this Sunday. We are back. This is your host D with Tie in the Cards, and this is your Starts and Suits Live. How's everyone doing today?
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? D, hope you're well. Been another crazy week behind us.
It's another week. So, for those of you who don't know us, my name again is Dee, and I am the Wolf of Wall Street. I am here with Ty every week on Sunday evenings, typically to bring up to you just some really cool information about how astrology and the divination cards come together as a system to give you a perspective on life and the markets. And so every week we gather and we look at the previous week, we look at the current upcoming week, and we give you our perspective on how things will look. And so I wanted to just make sure that I can, allow all of you to also ask your questions so that if you have any, you can feel free to join us in the chats either via YouTube or the comments below the stream. So Ty, how's it going? Talk to me. What's going
It's
on?
it's going well. It's going well. I mean, last week, if anyone joined us last week, you know that we actually had kind of a crazy spread for the cards for the weekly spread because we actually progressed through three different suits last week, which is very out of the ordinary. And and we definitely saw that in not only the markets but also on the world stage as well. I mean, what a crazy week, especially this last 48 hours or so has been really upending. Not only the markets but for the world, and no one really knows what's going to be happening next. But thankfully, with some of our systems, with astrology and cardology, we can get some clarity here and kind of see where we're going, and maybe get a better idea of the events to happen next. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess just to get started, if anyone doesn't know what cardology is, so a deck of cards is essentially an ancient calendar. There's 52 cards in the deck. There's 52 weeks in the year. There's 13 year 13 28-day lunar cycles in a year. It's 13 cards in a suit. There's I mean, how many different correlations do we want? We can also add up all the cards in the deck, and that equals 364. And then we add the Joker, and we get 365. And because the deck of cards follows a calendar, it follows a pattern. And with this pattern, just like astrology, we can identify different synchronicities, we can identify relationships, how planetary influences are going to influence certain times of day, certain days of the week, or months of the year. So again, a lot like astrology. And so just like astrology and how you have your sun sign, you can actually see here on this chart, you can actually see what your sun card is, or your birth card. And based on your birth card, everyone has what's called a life path. And if you take all the cards on the deck and you lay them in a circle, it's 300, so it'd be 360 plus the aces in the middle to represent the four cardinal directions. That's another synchronicity with the card that I don't think I've talked about on a show yet, of how that the suits equal the seasons. So hearts equals spring and desire, love. Clubs equals summer, and knowledge. The time, it's the tree of knowledge. It's growing, and you're learning. And then diamonds is the time of harvest. This is fall. This is autumn. And this is when you take all your knowledge and your desires and you create something. You create something of value. And then spades is winter, and so spades represents work, wisdom, and health. And at the end of this cycle, you then become. You become what you have desired, learned about, and created, and now you become this thing. So it's just a way of delineating time, and with these patterns, yeah, we can make a lot of predictions that end up being pretty accurate, and also um, life. I would say what it's most powerful for though is lateral thinking, and for your own self development, and for your own life path as well.
Wow, that never ceased to amaze me. Like how incredible. It's just like what a person will just consider a regular playing card deck, right? Like nothing to it. And there's so much embedded in it. It's incredible.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is like the cards, kind of like the tarot, like no one really knows kind of where they came from. Some people think the Chinese invented the cards, some people think it came from the Arab world. Um, and but actually it's been a system that has been replicated in many different cultures all around the world. Even the Mayans had a system that was very similar to this, with 52 reeds split into white and black instead of black and red, and but also split with the four cardinal directions like I talked about before. So it's like instead of suits, they just use north, east, south, and west. But it's essentially the same system.
Right, correct. And I mean, there's like also the mathematical implications of how the calendar, right? The Gregorian calendar is broken up, and there's so many similarities um between, even though people talk a lot about, the Gregorian calendar and how, it stole a whole month from us and how it's manipulated and all these things. But mathematically, if you look at it, um, it has a lot of correlations with even more ancient calendars as well. And it's based on seasonality, it's based on the seasons, on the equinoxes, right? So it's not as malignant as many people want to see it. It's just mathematically more in alignment with where we are right now in terms of our time cycles, and there will be a time when that will get rewritten once again, and it will be more in alignment with a more Uranian age coming. But right now, that's what serves us, and that's what we're following, right? Um, so you want to tell me a little bit more about this, like numerology behind the cards, or do you have something else for us after this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak a little bit about it. So like I said, the suits give the cards characteristics. The number on the card as well, or whatever. Basically, if it's a jack, queen, king, or any of the commoner cards, we call them. So the court and the commoners. And so any of the commoner cards, any of the court cards, all of them have their own unique imprint. So we actually go up to 13. And so like jacks are 11s, and queens are 12s, and kings are 13s. So we can actually pull numerology from there, because yeah, jacks being 11s are also, it can be erratic and can be emotional, and but driven by their heart, a lot like 11s in numerology. Eights are the number of power, just like they are in numerology. So it's like the numerology is it's like the handshake meme. Numerology and it's like the two biceps coming together. It's numerology and cardology come together and make that
Right, that's
handshake.
kind of
Because
funny.
yeah, absolutely, it like adds an extra layer on top of numerology.
And I always found it to be really significant when it comes to astrology, how it aligns and how, you know, I'm sure people see that every week when we talk about these and we layer the astrology over the cards. It's just fascinating. And speaking of cards and suits and changing suits, we this past week had like three change of suits in 1 week.
Yeah,
And we saw how the volatility came in to both sides, specifically on the dates that we called for it, which I thought was, it just never ceased to amaze me. Every week it's the same.
Well, because that energy is there, and that energy, and so no matter how we're observing how this energy is coming into our world, it's like, yeah, it may be a card, it may be a transit, it may be something, but our all of these systems are going to be pinpointing on our particular energy coming into our world. And so whatever your flavor is, you really can't go wrong, in my opinion. Like, all of these systems are pointing you in the right direction.
100%. So do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll get in here. Actually, do you want to do your forecast?
Sure, sure. So,
Yeah,
I'm gonna just go over a few just general ideas of what we can be seeing for this week. And then we can get into whatever you want to share, and
sure.
then we can go back and layer things together. So just a little quick recap on what we had talked about previously. And, one of the biggest things we talked about in about a week or two ago, or both actually 2 weeks ago and last week, is this Neptune entering Aries and the conjunction with Neptune in Saturn, and as well as the Mars conjuncting Pluto. We talked also about Mercury conjuncting uh, Venus, and also the square between Mars and Uranus. So these alignments were pretty powerful in the past few days and the past few weeks. It brought a lot of attention to going from a place of control illusion to reality, right? And so basically, we've had this constant view of what the world looks like, what the systems look like, what is actually happening in society, in the financials, and things of that nature. But then when you start to see the events currently unfolding with this Mars and Uranus square, basically literally blowing things out of the water. um, and taking the lid off of the pot, right? And we truly get to see what's boiling, what's been boiling below the surface. And then we had the solar eclipse, right? Which was like adding fuel to the fire, with this eclipse, which was squaring Uranus. So, historically, like we said before, it's correlated with wars and other hidden events that have come to the surface. Similarly, going back to that eclipse and that we're gonna have in Virgo, right? It's like back in 1979, it had, correlations with the current um, government of Iran, which then now with this eclipse, it's almost like a conclusion of that cycle, seeing now that regime under attack, right? And then we had in 1953 with the Saturn, Neptune aspect, we had how overthrowing of power again in Iran. So there's a lot of aspects that are happening in this past week and this week that have correlated directly over either government or political aspects of this particular nation that is now in conflict. And so, it's really interesting from the astrology perspective, because also, if you go back to 1917, we had the, Russian Revolution, um, and we had the rise of socialism and the labor movements in 1882. So there's all these we talked about how all these wars and political events give rise to new systems, right? Like in this case, socialism and the labor movement. And we had also, I think it was, can't remember the aspect right now because I don't have the research in front of me, but it was also the development of the, I believe it was the Red Cross or um no, it wasn't the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, I think it was. And so all these like, you know, um all these sort of human,
like humanitarian type
yeah,
organizations.
humanitarian, exactly. All this humanitarian perspectives and groups, and it all sort of coming from the ashes, right, of some of these really difficult times. And so I do feel like this week is going to be not just about, what this can do in terms of our financial um, standings, but people are really going to take notice and start looking inwards, with also you got to layer the Mercury retrograde. And I think it's going to take people away from so much of the material and bring them into more of a heart center place. We also talked a lot about how with the last with the solar eclipse and putting the seeds on the ground, right, of a time for manifestation and action, where, we can start to see those fruits eventually within the next 6 months come to fruition. And so right after the eclipse of the solar eclipse, we usually have a time of darkness, right? It's like a period between the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, where it's, if you kind of bring it back to like a seedling, you put the seedling in the on the earth, you care for it, you nature, you nurture it for a couple of weeks, right? And then during that dark period, while it's underground, it's still growing, it's still developing, even without direct sunlight, which I think is super interesting. Because when you compare it to what we're currently experiencing, right? This was the period of, okay, we are in uncertainty, things are unclear, we have wars and other things in the geopolitical arena really popping off. But in the next few weeks, we're going to get a lot more clarity of where this is going and why it's happening. And similarly, when we apply that to the markets, right, we're going to be experiencing a lot of that, in the next month or so. People are going to expect price action to pivot, but it might drag a little bit more than expected. I know there's a lot of accounts out there talking about, how we're going to pivot very early in the month and something about the 2nd or the 3rd of March, when in reality we can go continuously still on a downtrend until at the very least the 5th or the 6th of the month. If we start to see some potential attempts at a bottom and some sort of stabilization, it takes this moon at least six excuse me, it takes this moon at least 3 to 6 days to even start to show strong effects. So things can still be quite unstable for the next few days after. So yeah, it's we'll see. We'll talk more about the outcomes, but these all these planetary events that have happened have really brought um you know it's gonna come into culmination this week for sure. And it's all going to be sort of triggered by this current lunar eclipse.
Definitely. And I mean, I agree with you there, especially with seeing, the cards that we're progressing through for the next week, as well as like spades. Like I said, it's the season of winter. So it's like this is that culmination, like you said. This is the, you know, yeah, the culmination of a cycle and then getting ready for the new one as well, which is coming afterwards. But yeah, we're still definitely in that. It's kind of like that in between time. You know what I mean? Of like, the seedling's been planted, like you said, and like maybe a leaf popped through the dirt, but it's like we're not quite there yet. You know what I mean? It's like we're not. I don't know if we call ourselves a sapling yet. You know, not quite yet.
Yeah, we still have a whole month. And, I was having a meeting today with two of my girls, and, they're both traders, and they each have their group, and they're very knowledgeable. And we were having like a little, girl powwow there, talking about what we expect for the whole year, including 2027 and 2028. And one of the really interesting things that we noticed was how these lunar eclipses do mark an X on very interesting points of the cycle, of the market cycle. And maybe if we have time after, you're done with the cards, I'll go over some of the details of those conversations that might be useful to people.
Yeah, definitely. I know I'd be interested to hear. That's for sure. Awesome. Uh, so what do we want to look at next? We want to look at the blood moon, or we want to look at blood moon in the cards,
No, I don't want
Astra?
to talk about that just yet. If you want,
Okay.
you can go on with a few of your slides, and then we can redirect back to that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I could go over yeah, we could go over I have the blood moon in the cards. We could take a look at this.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. So the blood moon is coming on the 3rd, which is Tuesday. Um, so our daily card that day is going to be the 7 of spades. And actually, very interestingly, it's a 7 day as well in numerology. So we got double sevens. Um, So what is the 7 of spades? Because yeah, if you don't know the cards, this means absolutely nothing to you. So what yeah, what does this mean? And well, the 7 of spades is the 7 of spades calls for us to make an adjustment. The 7 of spades is about how can we improve our life? It's a kind of an introspective card, like you were talking about of how feelings would be turning inward. This is definitely a spiritual inward card. As a birth card, the 7 of spades is known as the mystic because with that 7, that spiritual 7, that enlightening 7, and then the suit of work, wisdom, and health, it kind of brings together spirituality, and also, the 7 itself sits in the middle of the spread. So if you take ace all the way to king, the 7 sits right in the middle. And so all sevens are kind of like bridges between the material and the spiritual. And what's kind of interesting about the 7 is that the 7 is the only asymmetrical card in the deck. And so, meaning if you flip it upside down, it's the only one that actually gets lopsided because of this pip in the middle, the 7th pip. This being a 7 of spades, that means we can experience highs and lows without a lot of middle ground. So, like as a birth card, sometimes 7 of spades, these people can have like emotional challenges, emotional issues. They can be really indecisive, or they could like really lean on people all the time. You know what I mean? They're not very like self-sufficient
Mhm.
because of all the indecision and conflict in their inner world. So yeah, it's part spiritual, it's part material, and that can cause a little bit of conflict in their life. But the goal of the 7, and you can see here with my little arrow here, when you turn the 7 to the side, you can see what the goal is. It's like we can either stay down here in conflict with the 2 pips that are facing opposite ways. This is conflict, where we can stay down here, or we can choose to embrace the 7th pip, embrace the spirituality, embrace the spiritual side of the 7, and elevate ourselves and change direction. And that's why the 7 is, just like all the odd numbers, are going to be cards of change. And you'll see I
That
have
is
the tarot card. Oh, go
absolutely
ahead.
fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever looked at it that way before.
I think, to be honest, it's like the most significant part about the seven, I think, is where it sits in the spread, where it sits in the middle, where it's that, it is that bridge. And being the only asymmetrical card, it's like, I think of the cards in a way where it's like, if you think of like a joint on like, or like even your arm, sure, like your arm, the odd numbers are kind of like your elbow, and the even numbers are like your forearm or like your upper arm. You know what I mean? The odd numbers always have to be moving and changing, but they're dictated almost in a way by stability. But they're in a constant state of movement. Whereas the even numbers are kind of dictated by change, but they always want to stay stable. And so that kind of lets you know about the seven, where it's almost like it's like the elbow of elbows. It's like it's the pivot of pivots right in the middle, bridging both sides of that, bridging both sides of that full suit spread.
That's really interesting. You said the elbow, the pivot of pivots. Well, we are in the pivot of pivots, literally and Mark. Oh, that's
Yes,
like so interesting.
we definitely are. And like, this card, it's like the seven and five of spades. It's like typically this is a lesson to be learned if this comes up in our personal spreads. Like this will be a lesson that we have to be learned, and it will be inner work. Like I said, like I've known people who have had this in their spread where it's like this is a profound like spiritual experience. You know what I mean? Like they have some
Mhm.
sort of like kind of life-changing spiritual experience, whether that be just something that they experience out in the world, or it could have been, I don't know, they were falling asleep at night and you get like a download type thing. You know what I mean? And but it could be any of those things. The
That, that's fascinating.
yeah, it truly is. And especially when you tie in the tarot card as well, because the tarot cards kind of rhyme with the playing cards in a way. And some people think like outside of the major arcana, um all these cards came from the playing cards, and so there is a correlation from these, but spades are swords. And so if we look at the seven of swords, we see
Yeah.
this tricky little guy here, sneaky guy.
Mhm.
And what's he doing? Well, the seven of swords, what this means is, he's kind of like running away, he's stealing something, or maybe he's running away from battle. It's like there's a couple different interpretations here, but essentially it means deception or trickery,
Yeah.
betrayal, something like
Yeah.
that. But on the positive side, it can also mean like super resourceful, adaptive, like you're a chameleon, you're super sharp minded, and you can just adapt to any situation, and maybe you make out like a bandit, kind of like this guy. And so like that's a very interesting when we bring it into like the concept of the market as well, because it's like uh, you know a, there is a, I think almost everybody thinks the market's going one way on tomorrow, and then
Right.
we have this
I'm so
this
glad you bring
deceive.
that up.
Yeah,
We'll talk about
exactly.
that in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like we have this like trickster on Tuesday, which is like very, very I don't know. I would just like stay alert and just like I wouldn't say that anything's set in stone right now, especially as we move through the seven, the six, the five, the four of spades this week. Like
Yeah.
it
And
truly anything can
literally,
happen.
and literally the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh of the month too.
Yeah,
Literally.
absolutely. Yeah, it's really crazy the numerology of this week as well. I didn't break that down on the slides, but maybe I'll do that for future weeks. Is also break down the numerology of each day, because a lot of the times when there is synchronicities like this, seven on a 7 day, it's like this could be really profound.
It is. It's a major
Yeah,
pivot. That's so
yeah.
interesting. That's so fascinating. I can't
When
say
we,
enough.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
another layer to add to this is that with the daily card being in the seventh of spades, and I assume that you have Jupiter and Uranus there because it's in the Jupiter Uranus line. Is that right?
It is.
Okay. So
Yep.
something that's going to happen, and this is absolutely mind blowing. is that in April, we have the third event of this particular transit. It's the Uranus-Jupiter transit. It's a trine natal to
Mm.
BTC's chart. And I can't make this stuff up. So it's happening 3 times. 2 times of it happened in 2026. The first time that it happened, it occurred in July, which is when I called the top for this cycle. Then we had in August and September, we had a Jupiter, no, Saturn squaring Pluto transit in August, which gave us the additional move to the upside, still holding price up even though the cycle was over. And then we had a Saturn Jupiter sextile, which also gave us that September October bump. That and I think it was Uranus squaring Pluto. And that was that, again, that September, October fake out to the upside that swept the July highs and then dropped the rest of the market. So what I'm thinking, so it happened 2 times. It happened, like I said, in July, and then it happened in that October, November timeframe when we had the final drop. So we have an additional one. It's the third one. And by nature, when they come in trines like this, right? The third one is typically less abrupt um, and a bit more shallow. So, but it's happening again in April. Now, the kicker of it, even though it peaks in April, it starts in March.
Oh,
And it
wow.
starts at the end of March. And when you add the numerology, is 7.
Wow.
Then
Another 7.
another 7. And sevens are usually actually unlucky, unlike what the elite wants us to believe, right? That 777 is like the jackpot. 7 is an unlucky number. It's like you said, it's a trickery number, right? And so
Yep.
to add another layer to that, right? So even though it actually starts at the end of March, um, for this quick run for about 2 weeks in April, there's a Saturn conjuncting the moon in March, which will subside any real major drop. So it's giving us a bit of a more structure to our bottom, which is why I think March is going to be a month of stabilization, giving us that nice, much needed structure to this move that's going to start in March towards April. But what I was going to say is that the the move that's going to be the footing for this Jupiter Uranus trine that we're going to see coming up, it's going to start on the 7th of March. So we have now we have now the 7th of March, which is a 3-7, which is a 10, which is a 1 for beginnings. Then we have the Jupiter Uranus line giving us the 7 of spades, which is trickery. So where people think we're going to go, it's not going to be where we're going to go. So everyone's expecting this blood moon to be like massive and the next leg to 45K and blah, blah, blah. Well, not so much, but that's besides the point. And um and then that's going to give us the foundation that we need for this card to play out into April. But people need to be careful with that because once that trine comes, it's gonna have a bit of a blow off top feel to it, just like I talked about the 24th and the 25th last week about those twin tower candles, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw the rise early in the week, then we saw the twin candle reversal, right? On between the 25th and the 26th, and we had continuation of the trend to the downside, just as we expected. And so similarly, we're going to have a very similar situation because if that trine is out there on its own, it's very positive, but when it's combined, it also has a Uranus square in Venus. You know, again, Uranus being the card of sudden moves, irrevocable change. Then you have it on a square with Venus, the planet of value, things you value and assets. That is a combination for, again, the trickery of the potential look of a very bullish move that fades very quickly. And we already have two examples just back to back similarly, recently, and they were surrounded once again by this um Neptune squaring Pluto aspect. And we're going to have it once again in March in alignment with the other two. So it's a time to invest. I personally am going to start DCAing in March. However, we must be careful with that Seven of Swords there, which is going to carry us into April very deceptively. Everyone thinking we're like ready to go, and it's just going to hit the fan again. So, what kind of war or what kind of situation we're going to have for when that happens? It's I haven't done the research on that just yet, but it's definitely going to be very linked to whatever happens on the 7th.
Yeah, definitely linked. And I think, if with the energy of this card being played out for a longer period of time, that gives it a different perspective where it's like it's kind of just like volatility in general, because it's like if you think of you you can't sneak around forever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like it's gonna respond one way or another. And so I think, yeah, we could just see a lot of heightened volatility, you know. And so, just like the market makers like to do, it's not going to be an easy straight line up. Like it's probably going to be full of shakeouts and full of um fun
Unexpected.
obstacles. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Fun
to get
obstacles.
over. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. But what I find fascinating too is you have the soul card as the eight of hearts, and that's equal
Yeah.
to the eight of cups. And the eight of cups is a very interesting card because it comes after the seven of cups, which is to me the decision card, right? Like you have indecision, you come to the crossroads and you have to make a decision, and you know, you are you're on your way to
Hmm.
finding, you've made a decision and you're on your way to finding your path. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's somewhat similar, I would say. It definitely with like the cards, because this is the power of emotion. You know what I mean? So it's like this card, like if this was your birth card or something like this, you would probably just be a super like magnetic individual. Like people just want to be around you and talk to you, and like you're definitely a very sociable person, things like that. And as the soul card for the 7 of spades, there's a spirit card and there's a soul card. And your soul card is what you receive the benefits from.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Mhm.
you receive that power of love, that, and that's what's there to help you elevate and
Mhm.
change your direction in the 7. And so that it's the power of love that elevates you. And so that's what you get for free, essentially. And the spirit card is you receive the negative side of this card, and you must earn the positive side. So the negative side of the King of Diamonds is power. So it's a ruthlessness. It's just like that's why he's holding that axe. He's brutal. And he
Right.
gets what he wants.
Holy
And
crap. I never noticed
yeah,
that before. Oh my God.
yeah. Yeah, totally. He's got that axe, and he's
That's a
he's not
weapon.
afraid. Yeah,
That's
totally.
a serious weapon. Oh my God. How did I miss
But
that?
the
You bring up
yeah,
some really interesting stuff. Oh my God.
I mean, looking at especially the court cards, there's so much in these, like the
Yeah.
patterns used and
Yes.
everything tells a story. And along those lines, there's a reason why the King of Diamonds only has one eye visible versus like some of the others who have two eyes facing forward.
Yeah.
Well, the King of Diamonds is because he's all about that money. He's staring at that
Hey,
diamond.
hell
That's
yeah.
all he that's all he cares about. And but also that's what can make him like uncompassionate. And so
Yeah.
that's what has to be learned by the seven, is to not be a sneak, not be a thief, not like trick people, but to
Yeah.
actually use compassion to lead and get what you want, you know, because you'll
Yeah.
get what you want. You have a
But you'll
king
get the
underneath you.
axe.
Exactly, but you'll get the axe too. So, but as a spirit card, when we're talking about the mundane world and we're talking about the markets and things like that, I mean, I would just see it's like an exercise of power. So you're going to see market makers exercising their power. You're also
Yeah.
going to see, this is the United States card, birth card as well. So it's like you're going to see the market makers making power. You're going to see the power of basically just like greed, essentially. It's the power
Yeah.
of greed will be behind
Yes.
this.
That's a really good interpretation of that actually.
And I also put the Saturn card down here because if we look in actually the life spread, we start with the seven of spades here and we go Mercury, Venus, Mars, and then down here, Jupiter, Saturn. So this is the Saturn card for the seven of spades. What does that mean? Well, Saturn, obviously is father time, and he rewards hard work and he's the planet of karma. Well, the four of diamonds here is the card of financial stability. And because Saturn rewards hard work, the four also rewards hard work. And then in the realm of finance and values with the diamond, it's like this card is about stabilization. So then when you think about that seven that's all over the place, high and low, doesn't know which way it's going, trying to make himself better, might not be that great of a guy, who knows? But stability is what will be rewarded, and that's like the goal of the seven, to elevate and stabilize. And
Say
so
that
that's
again.
and
The what?
the goal of the seven to elevate and stabilize,
Mm, okay.
because essentially when you think about the seven, like this, the seven's full of that indecision. And you think about the cards that are next to the seven, you have the six and you have the eight, and so the seven wants to be an eight. And so the seven wants that power and wants that stability of the eight. And so that's the goal, and that's what is rewarded by Saturn. As this person, this individual, this asset moves through its life, that's what it will be rewarded, is that foundation of
That's
values
so
and the
freaking
and the structure.
interesting. I had to hear that like three times because it
Hmm.
wasn't setting in. Like we just literally talked about, Saturn being like I think this was off the stream when when I said to you that when Saturn Neptune come together, it's almost like finding the sand, the bottom, finding the bottom,
Yeah,
finding the sandy
absolutely.
bottom, in the vast ocean. So it's so interesting because it's like cutting through the illusion to find the solidification of your desires, your dreams, your aspirations as it's moving into Aries. And then you talk about Saturn card there being the four of diamonds. And the four of diamonds is also the four of pentacles, and the four of pentacles, the image is, a guy sitting holding, the coins, the four coins with his feet, with his hands, sitting in a very stable position. So I mean, if you think about the markets, right, and you think about what's going on right now, I mean, no one is thinking of stability. That's like the furthest thing away from people's minds right now. But could it be that that's what's really happening underneath that water, underneath that surface?
Exactly. And that's a great way of looking at it, is because it's like as the seven evolves, it's like that is the lesson of the seven. So it's like that energy of stability, even though this is erratic energy, it's like the energy of stability is still there and can be activated, usually through work or time, but it'll be activated. And when we talk about these cards and like the in and we apply them to like assets and the mundane world, it adds a different layer on top of these because a lot of these are for personal identification for people is like what it is like truly like a lot of the core meanings of the cards are for. So then when we put it onto assets and things like that, we got to realize that although this is a linear path that a person will go through in their life, all of these cards that are in your spread are active in, and it's like they're dormant but active in
Mhm.
your life. You know what I mean? They can be triggered, they can be turned on at any moment, even though these are specific periods of your life as well.
Right.
You still have all the cards that are in your spread at all times. So it's like that's there. And also the Jupiter card being the 4 of hearts. I mean, it's got 2 hearts right next to each other. And the 4 of hearts in Jupiter, I mean, that's all about family, togetherness, compassion, bringing people together into a stable like environment, a stable group.
Right.
And like and so it kind of rhymes with the 4 of diamonds a lot, but it's like when you see that that's there in the Jupiter position, one of the most beneficial positions, it shows you kind of how the 7 overcomes its own inner turmoil.
Mm. So deep. So deep.
It really is, especially when you apply it then to like people as well. It's like you can truly see like the lessons that people have to learn along their path in life. And thankfully we have this amazing system that lays it out right here in this spread. This is everyone's life is right here. And it's all here once you know like who your neighbors are and where your spread is and how to read the chart. It's all here with the planets and your life path. It's
Right.
truly beautiful.
Right. 100%. So if you want, we could go into what I have to talk about in terms of the blood moon, because what I did earlier was I just gave a little bit of a summary of what we talked about in the past weeks and how that's now going to be laying the foundation for what's going to happen this week. So, we talked about, the cycles of these major planetary transits that just occur and how they, kind of took the lid off of things. And, while it's looked like it's boiling and, steam is coming out, you got the wars, you got, financial markets, losing, assets, and we don't see anyone printing and putting money back into the markets. We, have all this instability, geopolitically and economic. Um, here comes the blood moon, and most people would think that that's like the nail in the coffin. However, let's take a look at, if you have the other slide, we can
Yeah.
talk about the blue moon there. I mean, the blood moon there. And so, on March 3rd, as you just pointed out, very key date, right? And, people try to bring you fear and a lot of FUD with these events, but the elites like to use them for manifestation and for benefiting themselves. And that's why you need to use it in a much more practical manner. Um, it's happening at 12 degrees, 53 minutes of Virgo. Okay. And the Virgo axis is a very important axis in astrology. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. It completes a cycle that began back in the February solar eclipse, and that happened in Aquarius. And, like I said, back then, that solar eclipse was the ruptured. Okay, it was explosive, and you can see how that now energy is showing itself on our geopolitical economic axis, right? Exposing and bringing to the forefront what the lunar eclipse is supposed to heal. And so, Virgo is the sign of discernment, purification, precision, um, deep, uh, deep research, deep understandings. And so, breaking things apart to really see what's underneath the surface. And, that's going to serve us well because now with Mercury being retrograde is allowing us to reassess and rethink our strategies. What are we exactly doing? Not just, in the markets, but in our daily living, right? Like, is this how I want to play the game moving forward? And, it remains by giving you the time to refine yourself. So a lot of people during this time get bored and I don't know what they do with their time. I remember when we had the same time last cycle in 2022, this is when I was working the hardest. I was studying hard. I was putting into practice everything that I had learned the 2 prior years. And this is when I started to really, put my financial astrology edge to the test. It's when I really focused, when I really was honing in into what I wanted to do, what was the plan for the next cycle and for the upcoming years. And so this is what this time is giving you. Instead of worrying about what happened, how much money you lost, or how much money you didn't gain, this is the time the moon is allowing you to, heal those wounds, heal that trauma, and really bring in now more clarity and find your own bottom, right? Like, have you hit rock bottom, or are you looking to miss another cycle because of that? We are definitely still on a bear market. We're definitely going to continue to go down towards the end of the cycle, towards the end of quarter 4. But don't miss this opportunity that is coming in for you in this upcoming months, because everyone is telling you that we're going to go to 45K. So if we do, that's fine too, but you have to put the FUD aside and really hone in into what is happening now. This eclipse is not happening alone. It does, just like any other astrology event, doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's other things happening. We have Mars entering Pisces, okay, on the 2nd, dissolving some of this aggressive edge that typically Mars will manifest during this moon situation that we have, and it's going more into a spiritual flow. So, Mars in Pisces is so different than Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries is the mercenary. It's that general that, the crusaders, like going across countries, taking no prisoners. But Mars in Pisces is a much softer, I call it the spiritual leader. Mars in Pisces is that leader that leads through spirituality, through compassion, like you just said, very well spoken, and then you have Venus, entering in Aries, and although it's not in its best placement on the 6th, okay, it immediately does conjunct Neptune and Saturn. So it's bringing in, again, more of that compassion into an area where it's aggressive, where it's softening the blow, okay? And it's all happening near that reset degree of the vernal equinox. So those dates are going to be key from the 2nd all the way until the 20th. And then we have Mercury, right, reaching the Cassimi, which is the conjunction with the sun on March 7th. And that moment of maximum clarity is going to give us that pivot, that understanding of where the market really is going as it's crossing those thresholds. So that's going to be a really important, and again, pointing back to the numerology, right, of the 3 and the 7s and the 10 and the 1, culminating a new cycle. And always take this into variation, because I'm giving you these dates, and although they play to the dot on BTC, because that's usually what I refer to, remember that there is a plus or minus 1 day for other assets. And for my XRP family, I want to give you a warning that even though it's going to look maybe still shaky up until the 10th for most assets, it's still a pivot month, and XRP might see this energy carry it further because it has other transits that are kind of keeping it in detriment right now. But we're looking more after the 10th or the 11th, even as far as the 12th and the 14th for XRP. So just bear with the transits for my XRP family as Bitcoin does what it needs to do. Okay, and but XRP is going to see some nice sharp moves this month towards the end of the month, and that's going to be a little bit better. So just hang in there for that. So going back
Well,
to this,
art
right? I'm sorry, go
Alt's
ahead.
got a party. Alt's got a party sometime, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
been like years, I feel like, you know?
Well, this is the thing. We have short memories because we forgot that alt's been kicking in since 2024. I remember when
Yeah.
I was teaching my course, in 2023, 2024, and when we were doing actual practical exercises on alt, I mean, we literally were forecasting it as the alt were literally taking off. So it's like, and then there's some alts that did 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x. People still did not take profit. So, we have this idea that we have these price targets in mind, and unless it takes off at that price target, we're not getting off the boat and blah blah blah. People need to learn how to understand this is a game of percentages, a game of gain percentages. If you get a certain gain, and it doesn't hit that number, you still make gains. You gotta take things off the table, especially for coins like XRP, because XRP doesn't trade like a regular coin. It gives up everything that it takes. It's almost like a stable coin at this moment, and it's going to remain on this range for some time. It's not going to hit those 15, $100 targets just yet. People need to be cognizant of the TA and really understand what they're trading. But, I digress.
It's the time, it's timing. And that's something, a lot of people, if they don't come into the astrology world of trading or other things, it's like time is something that's kind of not really even thought about. It's just like this level, you know what I mean? It's like I want this target or something like that. But it's like we have certain windows of opportunity here. You know what I mean?
Yes,
As
100%.
indicated by the cards and the stars, and it's like we only have so much we only have so much time on the clock, that so it's like if you have this price target of X amount of dollars or something like that, but it doesn't get there and we're about to hit another transit, well, sorry, that's probably it. you know and
Yeah,
that's kind of how
exactly.
it goes, because we just have windows of time.
That's beautifully said. And my community knows that so well because that's how we operate. We operate on windows of opportunity. I tell them what the window is, what the opportunity looks like, and I tell them what the bias is. And so always being in the right side of the market matters. And just knowing that alone, that's 75% of this formula. So targets are not even like a thing. Like if the window closes, you close. That's it. There's
Yeah,
no if,
exactly.
ands, or buts about it. Like you cannot expect a specific outcome once the window is closed. Like
Right.
there's just nothing else. The cycle is gone.
Yep,
Get
exactly.
out, but another fun fact about this blood moon is, during these types of eclipses, right? The moon is because people ask like, so why is it so special, right? Like, why are these moons so important? And it's not just a correlation that it has with price, but because we have a lot of moon pivots, but it's because these types of moon, they're precisely passing entirely through Earth's shadow. Okay. And so it typically, will go dark and it glows red. So it's not just the color as what is going on is that it's passing through Earth's atmosphere and it's bending sunlight around our planet. So it's filtering those blue wavelengths and it's allowing for the red light to reach the moon's surface. So it's almost like watching a sunrise or a sunset projected onto the moon. It's
Beautiful.
like Earth is sunrise and sunset all happening at the same time. And it can range in color depending on, the conditions at the time. But a lot of people don't understand that this for the eclipse to occur, it's not just the moon passing on the shadow. It has to be tilted and the sun have to conjunct at a very specific nodal angular position. So it's where the nodes meet with with angular precision, the conjunction. And so it's a very special time that of the year. It's a sign of healing, and it's on the Virgo axis, right? And so well, more specifically like Leo Virgo, between Leo and Virgo. And so what's happening is that you know it's giving you that kind of like, it's illuminating that area, right? Where you have that Virgo Pisces axis. And remember, we talked about how in Pisces, when Mars is in Pisces, it's like that sort of spiritual healer, that spiritual leader. And then you have this happening in Virgo, illuminating that axis, giving more power to that softening, which is another reason why I don't think it's going to be as brutal as people think. Okay. At the same time, and the other side of the coin, it can subside the price action because Mars is the drive that fuels that tank of the rocket for price to a transit to happen with more force. So we won't see maybe the immediate effect that this lunar eclipse is going to have. We won't see those powerful moves right away. It might be enough to get people excited, but it'll fade just as quickly, like we just said about the April situation. And so that's happening there. A couple elements to take into consideration also is the south node, is the node being eclipsed. And so it's the release um rather than the expression. So in other words, it's like I said before, right? It's not going to be as forceful as other times. It will be more practical in its expression. And then I think, and then also with the sun moving from Pisces into Aries, right? That's when things will eventually do pick up more. Because the sun in Pisces is not, it's a lot more calm in terms of price action and energy than it is once it enters Aries. It just feels that warmth, that the warmth and the fuel that is needed, almost like the same way that we're transitioning from winter into spring, right? But so that's kind of like the overview I wanted to give about that moon and how it's affecting all the other transits that we have going on for this week, giving us that sort of underlying energy. And you can get into your weekly cards if you want, and then I'll just add what I see astrologically for each day.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, very interesting that the moon's gonna be coming over the south node, and especially in Virgo too, because yeah, like that refinement and that perfection. And that's a
Yes.
very interesting energy for this eclipse as well, where, we're talking about, it's just like we're formulating a new plan essentially. And it's like it's
Yeah.
refining that plan
And it's gonna
and
be
starting
like
things off.
very surgical in its operation, like how the price will move will be very much like the levels will get hit just as they should, like no
Yep.
more, no less.
Yeah, that's that Virgo energy. It will be to the penny.
Yes, to the penny, 100%.
So yeah, this week coming up, yeah, not as turbulent as last week. We have one suit this week, and we're just progressing from 8 to 2. And so on Monday, we start off with the 8 of spades, and this is actually my birth card. And this is power through work and healing. And so essentially, this is a healer card, And so I think we could see, some sort of, calm, I would say just like more, maybe a resolution from this like very turbulent weekend that we've had. And, futures are open now. And like, yeah, who knows what's going on? I haven't looked at the chart, but I'm sure it's
Yeah, me
crazy.
neither.
And
It's always
yeah,
crazy when we get on these, when we get
yeah,
on
I
this,
know.
the price action is like happening live, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but because it's a healing card and because it's the power of work, it's like, this could be a great card for, like we were talking about with that Virgo energy, refinement, planning, structure. It's like that's what this card is all about. And and then we move into the 7 on Tuesday, which we talked about quite a bit. So it's like we could see, some sort of stability Monday, and then Tuesday is when we gotta be ready for that deception.
Yeah,
Um, absolutely. And 7
100%.
or when on Wednesday when we get into the 6 of spades, in traditional card systems, in the divination, like sort of cartomancy is what it's called, cartomancy. This is the death card. But in cardology, it's the card of fate. It's still kind of like the death card, but essentially what it means is because the 6 is 2 rows here, sixes are messengers. They're a channel. And they also are kind of like a 4 and they add structure and stability. And so because this is the card of fate, when we have like the 6 of spades like in our spread or something, that can be those times when when you feel like you kind of got to do something and it's sort of nagging at you, but you kind of keep putting it off, and like but you got to do it, and like but you're just it's nagging at you. That's the 6. That's the 6 of spades. It's that fate. It's that duty that you need to fulfill, and it'll just kind of keep bugging you and bugging you and bugging you because it's a karmic card, and so it'll just keep bugging you until you make that sort of resolution in your life. When we apply that to the markets, it's like this could be a news driven day, and this could also just be another day of like chop and stability. And but also being that death card as well, it's like it's kind of like these 3 days, and I'll get into my big spooky exclamation point here in a second. But these 3 days are definitely
Okay.
things that I would be watching out for. It's gonna be very news driven and volatile, I would say.
Okay, well, let me stop you there so I can add a layer
Sure.
of astrology to it, and then we'll continue to the other half of the week. So on Monday, March 2nd, at 1400 UTC, we have Mars entering Pisces. So it's almost like if I had to put a archetype on it, I would say it's like the warrior, like I said before, the bloodthirsty general, right? The warrior dissolving into the mystic, right? It's like the warrior becoming the spiritual leader. It's a softening of the edges. It's the softening of the energy. And so this is what it has going into on March 3rd, when now then we have, the lunar eclipse, and again happening in that Virgo Pisces axis. And so with that kind of energy um going on, right, you cannot expect for it to be violent as much as we have expected. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to see more downside. We totally are, but just expect some softening of the energy first. And it's definitely bearish pivoting into bullish. So something to consider there for the third. Um, and then I think you talked about the fifth. I'm gonna let you continue because I don't have anything substantial on the fifth, but I do have stuff on the sixth, on the seventh. So you can proceed.
Awesome. And yeah, that's something to consider too here. It's like time zones. So it's like, when technically we're in the 5 of spades, in Europe, it's like we're over here. And so it's like, these cards will, when they're daily cards, these are going to kind of like mush into each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
and
like
that's
because
why
of
I
like
tell
time zones.
people, number one, this is not financial advice. We're seeing life through our lenses and sharing our views. But also there's a plus or minus 1 day for these things. And the reason for that is again because of the time zone changes. It's also fractal theory, right? That tells us that, things repeat. So patterns will repeat. And a lot of times we'll see, what we expect on the 5th kind of manifest on the 4th, etc., because one time zone and then, fractal theory. But, just something to consider. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the different time periods as well, because that's something with the cards as well. It's like we can delineate a life. And I don't think I mentioned this before. We can delineate your life, but we can also delineate a year. We can go down to the week. We can do 28-day lunar cycles. We can do 91-day seasonal cycles where you progress through the suits every quarter. And so yeah, it's absolutely fractal because we can go all the way up to like 364-year cycles and things like that for like long-term assets or countries and things like that. So yeah, definitely fractal. You can get all the way down to the minute if you want to, but that
Yeah,
that's just
100%.
insanity. Yeah. But yeah, so the Thursday, yeah, I put this exclamation point here on Thursday because the 5 of spades is I've talked about before, and the 9 of spades is known as the death card. But when in my like research, like back testing the cards, what I have found is that actually physical deaths seem to actually occur more on the 5 of spades than the 6. And that could just be because, 5 is all about exploration through the 5 senses. And so I guess the way I interpret it is like you explored right on over to the other side, and it is a change because it's an odd number, and it's physical because it's 5. And so it's very this can be a very heavy card, but also on the flip side of that, this is a card of tremendous creativity because again, you're taking the exploration through the 5 senses, but we're tying in work, wisdom, and health. And so like this can be a culmination of all the things that you have gathered to create your wisdom. And now it's just an explosion of creativity because all of this innate knowledge that you've gathered. And so this is a day to watch out for. And that's why I put the exclamation point. This could be volatile both ways. Both ways. But I'm definitely seeing like volatility here, especially with the 5, because it is so powerful. And having to do with the markets as well being a physical thing, it's like yeah, it's just more and more reasons to tie in here and definitely just stay on your toes this day, because also it's like spades are heavy and they can be swift as well, like a sword, like the swords. So yeah, it's just something to those head fakes. That'd be something to watch out for. Very similar energy to that 7, except the 7 is internal and the 5 is external.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the spades, that's something that I think a lot of people kind of forget is like it is a sword. I mean, it's an acorn is what it actually is. But it could be a shovel, to represent death. But the acorn it was actually laid on the graves of people long long time ago, and they would put acorns on the grave because it symbolized rebirth. And so that's where we get work, wisdom, and health from the spades.
Hmm.
Friday, stability. This is spiritual stability. This is your inner world. You are locked in. Nothing can shake you. You are the rock. Nothing can shake you. And so this is a great day. It could be boring, or it could be an equal like balancing of the scales in a way where it's like if we lean, so like for example, if we go and this does play out as like the death card, and let's say we have like something super sharp on Thursday, Friday's going to even that out because the 4 needs stability. It has to stabilize itself. And so that's kind of where I see us going. And then through the weekend, we'll get our pump and dump on Sunday. But yeah.
Okay. So for Friday, March 6th at 10:46 UTC, we have Venus entering Aries. And like I said before, right? It's not Venus' most favorite place to be. but it definitely brings value to and assertiveness to things that you value, whether it's your assets or other things in general. But Venus also crossing that great reset degree, which is what I'm calling it, at the 0 point of Aries, right, where the cycle begins. So now she's bringing value into that Saturn Neptune transit, okay, activating it and giving us more themes related to money and relationships. So I lean bullish towards that. We can still see some residual from the drop on Wednesday. I'm sorry, on Tuesday and Wednesday. So even though things will look slightly potentially bullish early um, against what most people may think, but it won't last long, and we'll have uh, some down energy coming into like Wednesday and Thursday, and even into Friday. But as she enters, Aries, right, she brings in that appetite for risks again, and she brings that value towards um, across the area that gives more of an aggressive edge. So it's good for execution, and people are going to start looking for potential plays at that point. And then on Saturday, the 7th, we have the Sun conjuncting Mercury, or Cassimi as it's called, at 16 degrees in Pisces. And, that's sort of, in my opinion, is the heart of the retrograde. Is kind of where things really kick off. And, whatever pivots you saw happening during the shadow will be reflected at this time. So I'm looking for patterns that occurred during the shadow period to now come to fruition and come to um, the forefront now. People are going to be able to see things more clearly in terms of what direction and execution style they need to apply for the price action from the weekend into the upcoming week. And and we'll probably get more news driven price, just like we did this past weekend when we had a pump and people weren't expecting a 3K move on a weekend. So watch for news, and that may be leading from Friday until Saturday. We also have that Venus conjunction with Neptune, again in Aries, about 1 degree Aries, 16 minutes. And so that one again is a Venus conjuncting with Neptune there. It's bringing again more of an idealistic perspective. So, people are going to start feeling a lot more comfortable with their moves and their investments, as they can potentially see things unfolding in a more positive way. However, I think it's a potential risk around that time, even though things look like they're finally moving in the right direction. They could be quickly fading. So still some volatility there for this week. It's still going to be ranging. It's still going to be up and down. Not, a lot of false starts, but it's a good time to start already initiating some actual execution. In my opinion, I'll be deploying and executing all of the first week of March. This is not financial advice. I'm just saying what I do. And then the second week as well. And then what else we have? And of course, because Venus is conjuncting Neptune, it's also going to be conjuncting Saturn, a degree or so more, or after, at 2 degrees, 38 minutes in Aries as well. Okay, and this is again, where sort of Neptune's idealistic move is going to meet its request for proof, the demand of of proof that we have really, started the move, and it's probably gonna, look for a retest of price around that time as the, idealistic pump and narrative pump that we might see when Venus conjuncts Neptune is going to come back and say, okay, let's do a reality check. Is this move really real? Are we gonna break structure again? Are we gonna break support, or March 7th speculation move actually finds its ground. So really important weekend as well. And of course, being that some markets are closed on the weekends, what I always tell my students is that the energy never dies, right? The energy will take place no matter whether the markets are happening or not. And so what happens is when the markets start, the floodgates open and the energy will have to find a place to manifest itself, and hence the gaps that we form in some exchanges and charts. So when we have really volatile and important transits happening on weekends, just be careful and don't get greedy on Monday open. Let price set its course and let the range form, so that you know where the price is gonna, how the energy is gonna manifest itself for that price. Okay. I think that's all I have. Unless you have something else to add, maybe I can
That's
close it.
yeah, that's about it for me as well. And I mean, I thought it was really interesting. You said it was Mercury and which other planet on Saturday?
Uh, I think it's Mercury Cassimi. I think it's on Saturday.
Oh,
So
okay.
Mercury conjuncting the sun. It makes me think of that story that we always talk about. That I always ask you the name because I can't remember names. The methodology of the mm, flying too close to the sun and then melting your
Oh,
wings.
yeah. That why can't I think Icarius? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
tell
yeah.
me every time, and every time
Yeah,
I
yeah,
ask,
yeah.
like, I can
Icarus,
never remember.
Icarus. That's how that
Yes,
Icarus.
I
I
have.
always read it. I always read it, so it's like, yeah. But yeah, totally. And that's kind of the three here is I thought it was interesting they brought up Mercury just because like the three is very creative, and the
Mm,
three of spades is known as kind of like the artist or the writer's card. And
mhm.
so yeah, Mercury being there is like you can see this communication heavy day. Um
Yes,
and
yes,
then
news
the
driven. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
A
news
news driven
driven,
day. Yeah,
definitely some news on Saturday. And then yeah,
yeah.
Sunday, the two of spades is known as the Aquarius card because it's like the humanitarian card. And so yeah,
Mhm.
you could definitely it's kind of like the eight without all the work. So the eight brings all the work to the healing, and then the
Yeah,
two is just like healing and compassion and
yeah.
spiritual connection. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful. That's all I got too, D. I mean, I think we
That's
got
so
an awesome
interesting. Well, I
yeah.
think we can close it up with that slide that shows the a little bit of the visual of the research of the blood moon. I think it was the slide before it. Yeah, that one. So in the past, because a lot of people, I what I did is I did a lot of research on this cycle and for this moon event happening. And I know a lot of people have talked about this in terms of, like the occurrence in 2021, when, we had the China ban, and we, lost a lot of momentum and the market was definitely suppressed and stressed. And that, we had the acceleration of the decline around that time from the last high of 64K. And then, in 2022, we had the crash of, the Terra Luna collapse. So then, in November of 2022, we had, the FTX collapse. So what I told my what I told my community is, that this is happening also during Mercury retrograde. So things that are bound to go wrong can't go wrong. Okay. And even though we have the softening of the energy. Also, that can be interpreted into a loose floor, right? Like no, how do you say, like the softening of that sandy
Oh,
bottom that we
footing.
talked about, right? Of the
Yeah.
waters of Neptune, right? And so how your feet can go a little deeper in the sand than you expected. So just, being mindful despite of, the potential that we can be finding some ground here. There has been cases for making a warning, right? That although eclipses don't cause the crashes, they do bring in that energy that can, visibly give you a more momentum to the downside. So on the third, even if things look like slightly bullish, you have to wait for that energy to reset itself, because we will still have a continuation to the downside for the remaining days. So just to be careful not to catch falling knives. And I personally, and again, not financial advice, I moved all of my money and I had to do it in segments because I couldn't do it all at once. But I had to move my money from the exchanges into my wallet, my cold wallet. Just to keep it protected. And I can also make buys directly from my wallet, so I don't have to depend on exchanges going down or anything like that. Um, during times when, you gotta I only have like a certain amount of limit orders in the exchange, and the rest I'll just buy in the moment and spot. And I will put I use Tandem Wallet, which has a Visa option, so you can actually make purchases and not have to you have direct access to your funds, and you can make purchases without having to convert into your, fiat currency. And I find that to be really appealing. So I'll put the link on that below as well for people to find it. But, it's definitely a week to be cautious and not overtrade, and to have good risk management, but it's also with a week of execution. Okay, be surgical with your TA, which is what Virgo is asking for, and be really mindful of your emotions, because this moon is could be emotional as well. Even though Virgo is not an emotional sign, it's still happening in that axis with Pisces, which is the psychology, right? Representative of psychology. So watch your psychology, be surgical in your execution, and don't hesitate. If you plan A, B, and C, and then execute accordingly. This is not the time to not have risk management or not to have a plan.
Yep. Be like this guy. Make out like a bandit. That's what you want to do this week.
Like a bandit. That's gonna be us like in May and June straight up.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well,
Well,
thank you,
yeah,
Ty.
I definitely want to thank everybody. Thank you, Dee. Yeah, thank you very much. Always a blast to talk with everybody. Once again, anyone has any questions, feel free, drop a comment on some of my posts, reach out, however you want to do it. I'm here to help you guys, and help you guys learn the system. So,
Yeah, and thank you
yeah,
for
reach
putting
out.
all that educational post on your feed. And guys, show the love. Make sure that you like and that you follow Ty as well. And his posts are super informative. I really appreciate the love that you share, and your likes and your reposts, because this way we can share this forecast and this knowledge with more people.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Yeah, I mean, I know I don't want to speak for you, Dee, but I mean, that's what I'm here to do is
Yeah,
I
speak
want to
for
help
me. Go
all you
ahead.
guys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We want to help you. We are here to
Less
help you.
less
Yeah.
less thing I have to do.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Stay sharp and stay goated. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Bye.